The underestimated species. For as long as the galaxy could remember, humanity was seen as little more than a curious species, primitive and weak. The other advanced civilizations had observed Earth from a distance, laughing at the humans' crude tools, their chaotic politics, and their backward ways. To them, Earth was just another rock in space, inhabited by an insignificant race of beings who were no more dangerous than a pack of wild animals. The aliens had their own reasons for dismissing humans. The galaxy was full of powerful species, many of whom had mastered advanced technologies far beyond anything humanity had achieved. There were races that could manipulate time, bend light, and even travel between dimensions. Compared to them, Earth's inhabitants were mere children, struggling to understand the basics of space travel, still in the early stages of their own technological evolution. The humans themselves were proud of their achievements, but they couldn't help but feel the weight of the galaxy's judgment. They had made contact with a few alien species, but nothing ever came of it. The more advanced races seemed uninterested in anything humanity had to offer. After all, the humans had no ancient powers, no long-forgotten technologies, and no great cosmic knowledge. They were just a young, unrefined species, stuck on a planet that had no real importance in the grand scheme of things. But as the years passed, something began to change. The humans, in their own way, began to evolve, not just physically, but mentally. It was a slow process, barely noticeable at first. They still didn't have the advanced technologies that the galactic empires boasted about, but they were learning. Humans were innovators, their minds constantly working to find new solutions to old problems. They had a remarkable capacity for adapting to any situation, and their curiosity led them to discover things that no one else had ever considered. To the aliens, however, these were just small steps. They didn't see the larger picture. The fact that humanity was learning at an alarming rate did not register as a threat to them. The aliens were too busy looking down on Earth, thinking they could never be in any real danger from these so-called primitive beings. Then, everything changed. One day, without warning, the galaxy went quiet. The communications that usually buzzed with life between star systems and empires suddenly stopped. The trade routes, once bustling with ships from hundreds of different species, grew eerily still. Something had caused a ripple in the galactic fabric, and the aliens had no idea what it was. At first, they thought it was just a temporary disruption, perhaps a malfunction in their communication systems, or maybe a few lost signals. But the silence persisted. The entire galaxy seemed to be holding its breath, and no one knew why. It was as if the universe itself was waiting for something to happen. What the aliens didn't know was that the silence was not just the result of a technical glitch. It was a sign. Something was happening on Earth, and it was happening fast. Humans, in their underestimation, had been quietly working on something that the galaxy had no idea existed. The advanced civilizations had never considered the possibility that humans, despite their primitive appearance, might possess something no one else had. A secret that had been hidden for centuries, even millennia. The rest of the galaxy had overlooked this, assuming that human ignorance and simplicity made them harmless. But now, as strange events began unfolding across the galaxy, the aliens were about to learn just how wrong they were. One by one, the first signs of something disturbing began to surface. The children of humanity, the most innocent and vulnerable members of the species, started disappearing. Not just a few, but many. Entire communities were affected, and the strangest part, there were no signs of any struggle, no clues, no ransom demands, and no explanation. It was as if they simply vanished into thin air. At first, the aliens observed with interest. They saw the humans in panic, their government scrambling to figure out what was happening. They expected it to be another problem of no consequence. But as the days turned into weeks and the disappearance of children grew to alarming proportions, the aliens began to notice something that sent a shiver through their ranks. Something was different about the humans' reaction. They weren't just panicking. They were organizing. Their governments, previously fractured and weak, came together in ways they had never seen before. There were whispers of a force rising from within the human race, a power that had long been dormant but was now awakening. The aliens dismissed it as coincidence, but a few began to take notice. They wondered if there was more to humanity than they had thought. They didn't know it yet, but humanity's true potential was beginning to unfold in ways that would leave the galaxy forever changed. In the eyes of the universe, humans were still nothing more than a primitive species. But as the silence continued to spread across the galaxy, one truth was becoming undeniable. The humans were about to reveal something that would shake the foundation of the stars themselves. The first signs of power. The galaxy had always been quick to dismiss humanity. Even after the mysterious silence fell over the stars, the powerful alien empires continued their routines. They waited, unsure of what to make of the strange series of events. The disappearance of the children seemed like a minor issue, nothing to disrupt the natural order of things, but the universe had underestimated Earth once again. It started with whispers. Small, seemingly insignificant rumors spread through the outer rim of the galaxy, where trade ships passed by Earth. Some claimed that Earth's most influential leaders had come together in secret. Others said that a new human faction had emerged, one that wasn't content to stay hidden behind their planet's defenses. The first inkling of something truly extraordinary began to make its way through the stars. Humans had always been known for their resilience, but the galaxy had assumed it was a product of desperation, of survival against impossible odds. They never expected humanity to possess something deeper, something more dangerous than mere survival instincts. But as the aliens would soon discover, this was a force that could not be ignored. Within the highest councils of the alien species, meetings were held. Representatives from each of the major galactic empires exchanged information. Some spoke with concern, others with skepticism, but one thing was clear. The situation was becoming more than just a human problem. Something was beginning to change. Across the galaxy, once thriving trade routes came to an abrupt halt. Ships that had once sailed from one end of the stars to the other, bringing goods from a dozen different worlds, stopped appearing. The silence stretched on, now accompanied by strange occurrences. Sensors malfunctioned near Earth's orbit. Subspace communications blinked out, only to return with cryptic warnings from the human sector. No one knew what was happening, but one thing was becoming certain. This wasn't just a random disruption. On Earth, the situation was rapidly spiraling out of control. The disappearance of the children was becoming the focal point of all human attention. What had begun as isolated incidents in small villages had turned into a global crisis. And then, just when things seemed darkest, something extraordinary happened. The first signs of humanity's hidden power began to surface. It began in the war-torn regions of Earth. In countries that had once been crippled by endless conflict, children returned. They appeared in the streets, confused and disoriented, but alive. No one knew how or why, but they were back. And they weren't alone. In every country, from the war zones to the peaceful cities, strange occurrences followed. Where the children had disappeared, they returned alongside something far more terrifying. In the aftermath of their disappearance, strange, unexplained phenomena started cropping up. People reported hearing voices in the darkness, seeing shadows move against the light, and feeling a strange energy in the air. In some places, entire buildings were torn apart without warning, only to leave behind strange markings and symbols that no one recognized. Humanity was now facing a new kind of enemy, a force that defied explanation. But as the dust settled, there was one question that no one could ignore. Where had these children gone? And more importantly, what had they become? It was clear now. The universe had no idea what it had unleashed. Humans, who had once been thought of as helpless and primitive, were now rising to challenge everything the galaxy believed to be true. The silence continued, but now it carried an unsettling weight. Something had changed on Earth, and the aliens could no longer deny it. A power had awakened, one that the galaxy had never seen before. The other species in the galaxy could only watch in confusion as humanity began to rally around their newly returned children. Whatever had happened to them, whatever had been awakened, was beyond anything the other species could comprehend. On Earth, a sense of unity was forming, not seen in centuries. The human governments, fractured and weak before, now stood together. The disappearance of the children had galvanized them, brought them together in ways that had seemed impossible. The humans were ready for something, but no one knew what, and the aliens watched, unsure of how to react. In the quiet corners of space, where rumors of human resilience had once been dismissed as stories, something far more dangerous was emerging. The children of Earth had returned, and with them, they carried a secret that no one had anticipated. The galaxy had thought humans were primitive, but they were about to learn the hard way that humanity was capable of things beyond their wildest imagination. The power that had awakened inside the human race wasn't just a force for survival, it was a force to be reckoned with. The silence that had once been a mystery now held a new meaning. The universe was about to find out just what humanity was capable of, and they were not prepared for it. The awakening power. The galaxy had once written off humans as a primitive species, stuck in their small corner of the universe, struggling to survive. But that was before they realized what had happened to Earth's children. The universe had assumed that humanity's place in the cosmos was insignificant, an afterthought in the grand design. But in the quiet of the galaxy, something had begun to stir. It had all started with the children. They had disappeared without warning, leaving behind nothing but confusion and fear. Yet, when they reappeared, no one could ignore the changes. They weren't just ordinary children anymore. They carried something with them, an energy, a power, that seemed to radiate from their very souls. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen before. It was raw, untapped, and far beyond what anyone could comprehend. But no one truly understood the scope of this new force until it was too late. The first to feel it were the minor alien factions on the outer edges of the galaxy. These small empires had once considered themselves safe from any true threats, existing in a distant part of space far from the major galactic powers. But when they started to hear strange reports of Earth's children displaying impossible abilities, strength beyond normal limits, the ability to manipulate energy, and a strange, almost supernatural presence, they realized the galaxy's balance had shifted. At first, these reports were written off as rumors, as fantastical tales of alien traders and travelers. No one took them seriously. After all, humanity had long been viewed as a primitive species. The idea that these children, who had once been so vulnerable, had come back with the power to change the galaxy was laughable. But then, a single incident occurred that sent shockwaves through the entire galaxy. A small, unsuspecting alien colony on the outskirts of a minor star system was suddenly attacked. The aliens who lived there had long been in a position of power, and their strength had always been enough to fend off any threat. But what they hadn't counted on was the humans, not just the children, but the parents, the warriors, and the scientists who now stood alongside them. The colonies were overrun in a matter of hours. Reports came in from across the galaxy, describing the inexplicable events unfolding on the distant planet. Cities had been destroyed without warning. The inhabitants were found in ruins, scattered and broken. The children, those mysterious humans, had returned to reclaim what they had lost, and they were far more powerful than anyone could have ever imagined. The alien forces, who had once prided themselves on their advanced technology and superior numbers, now found themselves retreating. The human power was not one that could be fought with lasers or bombs. It was something else entirely. Something primal. Something that could not be controlled. It didn't take long for the rest of the galaxy to understand. What the humans had discovered, what had awakened inside them, was a force that transcended technology. It was an ancient power, buried deep within their DNA, waiting to be unleashed. And the children had been the first to tap into it. The aliens began to panic. They had underestimated humanity's capacity for survival, but this was something else entirely. The power they had unlocked wasn't just about strength or speed. It was something far more dangerous. The humans had become a force of nature, unstoppable and relentless. And it wasn't just the children who had changed. Everyone who had touched the strange energy began to evolve, becoming stronger, faster, and more dangerous than any alien force could have imagined. The galaxy's most powerful empires gathered in secret, trying to make sense of the human anomaly. They convened councils, sent spies to observe, and analyzed the human race in ways they never had before. But there was one truth that they couldn't ignore. The humans had changed. They were no longer the vulnerable, fragile species they had once been. They had become something far more terrifying, a species with the power to reshape the galaxy. And it wasn't just their power that made them dangerous. It was their resolve. Humanity, once known for their internal strife and constant wars, had united in the face of this new power. Every corner of the earth had rallied together. There were no more divisions between countries or factions. There was only one purpose: to protect their children and to ensure that the power within them was never taken again. But as the power of humanity spread, so did the fear of what they could become. Alien species began to question the wisdom of their previous decisions. They wondered if it had been a mistake to let humans live in isolation for so long. They had given the humans time to grow, to evolve. Now they were about to face the consequences of their ignorance. In secret meetings, the galaxy's leaders began to discuss their options. Some called for a preemptive strike, to quash humanity's power before it could grow any further. Others urged patience, unsure of how to handle the situation. But one thing was certain: humanity was no longer something to be ignored. They were a force that could not be stopped. And as humanity's power continued to grow, the rest of the galaxy could only watch in awe and fear. The quiet, unnoticed species that had once been dismissed as primitive had become the galaxy's greatest threat. And in the shadows, the true extent of their power was just beginning to be revealed. The unstoppable force. As the news of humanity's awakening spread across the galaxy, panic and fear rippled through the alien empires. They had lived in the comfort of their own superiority for centuries, and the arrival of a new, unpredictable power threatened everything they had worked for. The humans, once considered a minor and primitive species, had now evolved into something that could topple entire civilizations. And they weren't just strong. They were organized, resourceful, and ruthless in their drive to protect what was theirs. Across the galaxy, whispers of the humans' rise reached the ears of every major empire. Some had already attempted to make contact, only to find their diplomats and envoys met with the same silence, the same chilling fear that seemed to surround humanity's every move. But it wasn't just the silence that unnerved the galaxy's leaders. It was the sense that the humans were watching them, waiting. And when the humans did decide to make their move, they would not hold back. The once proud alien fleets, boasting hundreds of ships and advanced weaponry, began to face humanity's first strikes with alarming effectiveness. It started with small skirmishes, minor border disputes, but the humans' tactics were unconventional, something completely alien to the galaxy's warriors. They didn't fight like the other species. They fought with a fury, a primal drive that no one could match. It was as if they had tapped into something older, something far beyond the technology they used. It wasn't just strategy. It was pure, unfiltered rage and power. One by one, alien fleets began to fall. The once untouchable star systems were now vulnerable. Their fleets shattered, their planets burned, and their people fleeing into the unknown. The humans weren't just taking territory. They were dismantling entire civilizations, not through superior technology, but through sheer willpower. They understood their enemies' weaknesses better than anyone. And when they struck without mercy. But the humans weren't just driven by vengeance. They were driven by something even more powerful: the desire to protect their children. The energy that had awakened in their young had become the symbol of humanity's might. It was the children's power that had ignited the revolution, and it was their presence that now served as the rallying cry for humanity's forces. The humans had made it clear, if anyone touched their children, they would not hesitate to wipe out entire species to ensure their safety. The galaxy watched as human forces, once considered weak and vulnerable, continued to roll across the stars like a tidal wave. Entire fleets of alien ships turned tail and fled when they encountered the humans, realizing that no amount of firepower could stand against their rage. Some attempted to form alliances, to create coalitions to fight back the human tide, but it was clear that humanity was unstoppable, and as their fleets grew, so did their power. The most unsettling part was the way the humans were uniting. There was no longer any division between factions, no rivalries or conflicts. Humans, once known for their wars, had come together, becoming a singular force to be reckoned with. The bond they shared was unbreakable, and it was this unity that made them so formidable. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. But it wasn't just the humans who were changing. Alien species, once certain of their place in the universe, began to feel the ripple effects of humanity's rise. The most powerful empires in the galaxy started to fracture, their leaders growing paranoid, questioning their own strength. Entire star systems went into hiding, hoping to avoid the inevitable clash that would soon be upon them. Some tried to reach out to the humans, offering peace, offering alliances, but the humans remained silent. They didn't need diplomacy. They had no interest in talks. They only wanted one thing: to ensure that their children and their species would never again be at the mercy of the galaxy. And the galaxy knew it. The first wave of humanity's power had come, and it had crushed everything in its path. The once untouchable alien empires had underestimated the humans for too long. Now they were beginning to realize the full extent of the threat. They had created a superpower, and now they had to face it. But despite the power humanity had gained, there was a nagging fear that lingered. What would happen when the humans fully realized their potential? What if the power they had unleashed was just the beginning? The galaxy had never faced anything like this before, and it was beginning to understand that it might never fully comprehend what humanity was capable of. As the first full-scale invasion began, the galaxy's defenders realized one horrifying truth. They were not just fighting against humans anymore. They were fighting against something more dangerous. They were fighting against the unknown. And humanity was about to show them just how far it was willing to go to protect its own. The human resolve. Across the stars, the news had spread. Human forces, once thought to be insignificant, had become a force that was nearly impossible to stop. Their rise had shocked the galaxy, but it was their unwavering resolve that terrified everyone. Humanity wasn't just fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting for something much more important: their future, their children, and the legacy they would leave behind. The first massive confrontation between humans and the greatest of the galaxy's empires had taken place, and the results were undeniable. A fleet of human ships, far fewer in number than their alien counterparts, had taken down a powerful armada with shocking efficiency. The alien forces, despite their superior technology and experience, had been unable to cope with the humans' unpredictable tactics. The humans didn't fight by the book. They didn't follow any of the expected patterns. They were wild, uncontained, and relentless, and that unpredictability was what made them so dangerous. But even more terrifying was the unspoken unity that now defined the human race. Unlike the fractured, divided societies of the aliens, the humans had come together as one. Every human, regardless of their background or place of origin, now shared a single cause: survival. The children had shown them what they were capable of, and the adults had taken that spark and turned it into something much more powerful. No longer divided by petty conflicts or territorial disputes, humanity had united in the face of a common enemy. And that enemy was the rest of the galaxy. Human leaders were not just military commanders. They were the voice of a species that had been underestimated for far too long. They understood the stakes. The galaxy's leaders had misjudged the potential of humanity, believing them to be primitive and unworthy of notice. But the humans had proven them wrong, and now they were taking the fight to every corner of the galaxy. Their forces, growing by the day, were unstoppable, and they had no intention of stopping until every last alien threat was wiped away. The universe had no idea what was coming. In the midst of this growing storm, human spies had infiltrated the heart of the alien empires, gathering intelligence on their weaknesses, their plans, their fears. It wasn't just about military power anymore. It was about knowing your enemy better than they knew themselves. The humans had learned how to exploit the weaknesses of the alien empires, how to turn their strengths against them. In one of the galaxy's most powerful star systems, an entire fleet of alien ships had been destroyed without a single shot being fired. It wasn't a show of strength. It was a show of human cunning. The human fleet had outsmarted the enemy, using their knowledge of the terrain, the enemy's habits, and the element of surprise to wipe them out. The attack had been surgical, swift, and precise, and it left the aliens questioning just how much they had underestimated the humans. But while the galaxy trembled at the thought of humanity's rise, there were whispers of something even more terrifying. The humans weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting to change the balance of the universe. For years, the galaxy had been ruled by powerful alien empires, each one dictating the rules of the universe. But humanity, with its newfound strength, had the potential to rewrite those rules. They were no longer just fighting to protect their children. They were fighting to make the universe a place where no one could dominate them again. And that, more than anything, was what terrified the galaxy. The fear of humans was starting to seep into the ranks of the most powerful alien forces. Some began to realize that they were no longer dealing with a primitive species. They were dealing with a species that had the power to break the existing order of the galaxy. The old alliances that had once held the galaxy in balance began to crack, as some species sought to ally with the humans, while others feared the consequences of opposing them. But humans didn't care about alliances. They didn't care about diplomacy. They had learned that the only way to ensure their survival was to stand firm and never compromise. They had been pushed to the brink, but instead of breaking, they had become something far stronger than anyone had anticipated. They had become the ultimate survivors, and their strength lay not just in their military might, but in their unyielding will to survive. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. As the first wave of human forces descended on an alien stronghold, the universe held its breath. Would the humans truly be able to carry out their mission? Would they be able to topple the empire that had ruled the galaxy for centuries? But as the battle raged, one thing became clear: humanity's resolve was unbreakable. Every blow they struck, every victory they claimed, sent a message across the stars. The galaxy was about to be reshaped by the hands of a species that had once been dismissed as nothing more than a footnote in the history of the universe. And this time, humanity was going to rewrite the story. The turning point. The galaxy, once so confident in its dominance, now began to tremble at the thought of what humanity could become. What started as a small, fierce resistance had turned into a formidable force that stretched across the stars. Entire planets had fallen under human control. Empires that had thought themselves untouchable were now on the defensive, trying to keep up with a species that had become far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. Humanity's strategy was simple: adapt and overcome. They had learned from their mistakes, honed their tactics, and used every asset at their disposal. The most terrifying part of humanity's rise was their ability to think outside the box. No one could predict what they would do next. Their flexibility in the face of danger was what made them so hard to fight. And now, they had proven to the galaxy that even their weakest members were forces to be reckoned with. The alien leaders, who had once dismissed humanity as primitive, were now beginning to question their decisions. They had underestimated the strength and resilience of the humans. They had assumed that their children, the ones taken by the enemy, would break the spirits of their parents. Instead, those children had become symbols of human defiance. Every lost child turned into an icon. Every injustice fueled humanity's rage. The galaxy was not just facing a physical threat anymore. It was facing the collective fury of a species that had been wronged, a species that would never forget what had been done to them. One by one, human colonies in the farthest reaches of the galaxy had begun to send powerful fleets back toward the heart of the conflict. What had been a small resistance was now a full-blown war machine, and with it came the might of countless human soldiers, each trained in the harshest conditions imaginable, each prepared to fight for their children, their homes, and their people. No one in the galaxy had seen anything like it before. The day the first alien stronghold fell to a single human fleet marked the turning point. What had once seemed impossible was now a reality. The entire galaxy watched as the stronghold, a fortress believed to be impregnable, was destroyed by human forces who had managed to slip past every known defense. The attack was swift, brutal, and left nothing behind but smoldering ruins. In the aftermath, whispers began to spread. Could humanity truly bring down the greatest empires of the galaxy? Could they topple the rulers that had reigned for millennia? As humanity's forces continued to advance, the galaxy began to realize something even more chilling. The humans had only just begun. They were no longer fighting just for survival. They were fighting to reshape the universe in their own image. They had no intention of being ruled by others ever again. It was not enough for them to defend their homes. They wanted to remake the galaxy into a place where their children could grow up free, a place where they would never again be subject to alien control. The first real blow to the galactic power structures had come in the form of a rebellion. A group of humans on a small, isolated world had risen up against their alien captors. It had started as a whisper, a secret movement among the oppressed. But as the rebellion grew, it became something far more dangerous, a beacon to the galaxy. The insurgents were no longer fighting to just free themselves. They were fighting for the very survival of humanity, for the future of their children. This rebellion was only the beginning. The human resistance, though still small, was growing stronger by the day. The numbers were rising, and so was the intensity of their tactics. The aliens who had once thought they could crush humanity with a single strike were now scrambling to hold on to the power they had spent so long accumulating. They underestimated the spirit of a species that had been pushed to the edge, that had endured more pain and suffering than any of the other species in the galaxy could comprehend. Humanity had faced unimaginable loss, and yet they refused to be broken. Every child lost was a spark, every injury a reminder of the strength humanity held deep inside. And as the galaxy watched, the aliens began to realize that they were not facing a weak, broken species. They were facing something entirely different. They were facing a species that had evolved not just to survive, but to fight and conquer. A species that could never be silenced, no matter how much they tried. The aliens had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated humanity's ability to fight for what they loved, for what they had lost. They had underestimated the power of human resolve. Now, as more and more alien colonies fell to the growing human force, it was clear that the galaxy was on the verge of a fundamental shift. It was no longer the age of the aliens. It was the age of humanity, and they would stop at nothing to ensure their place in the stars. The galaxy held its breath as humanity's forces gathered for their next major strike, knowing full well that this would change everything. Would this be the final blow to the alien empires, or was this only the beginning of a war that would engulf the entire universe? No one knew for certain, but one thing was clear. Humanity had become the galaxy's most dangerous force, and there was nothing the aliens could do to stop them. The turning point had come, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The fall of empires. The war had reached its peak. Humanity had evolved from the underdogs, the misunderstood species, into the galaxy's most feared and respected power. What began as an effort to rescue their children, to protect their future, had now grown into a full-scale war that was on the brink of changing the universe forever. The aliens, once confident in their dominance, were now witnessing their civilizations crumble. one by one, under the might of the human forces. The final blow came when humanity launched its most devastating attack. For months, a massive fleet of human ships, advanced and deadly, had been gathering at the edge of the galaxy, quietly waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The alien empires, still reeling from previous battles, had grown complacent, believing that they had finally pushed humanity to the brink of extinction. They had underestimated the humans' resilience, their ingenuity, and their ability to adapt. When the time came, the human fleet moved like a shadow through the galaxy, striking at the heart of alien strongholds. With a series of surprise attacks, they shattered entire fleets, destroyed critical supply lines, and crippled the very infrastructure that held the alien empires together. The galaxy's most powerful alien factions were no longer safe in their well-defended fortresses. The humans were everywhere, and they were unstoppable. The fall of the First Empire was swift and brutal. The aliens, once so certain of their superiority, were now scrambling to defend their homeworlds. Their soldiers, battle-hardened and used to crushing their enemies, were now facing something they had never encountered before. A species that fought not just for survival, but for the future of their children. The human forces, relentless in their pursuit, showed no mercy. There would be no peace, no negotiations. It was clear to the aliens that humanity was not interested in coexisting or sharing power. They wanted it all. The next empire fell within weeks. The leaders of the alien races, who had long considered humanity nothing more than a primitive species, began to fear the very creatures they had once overlooked. What had started as a few skirmishes and rebellions had now evolved into an all-out war, with entire planets falling under human control. As human forces advanced, they left nothing in their wake but silence. The once thriving alien civilizations, with their sprawling cities and advanced technologies, were reduced to ashes. The humans had made their mark, and the galaxy would never forget it. For the first time in centuries, the alien empires were beginning to feel the weight of their arrogance. In the midst of the chaos, a message from Earth spread throughout the galaxy. It was a simple declaration, yet it carried the weight of humanity's entire history. We are not primitive. We are not weak. And we will never back down. The aliens had underestimated humanity at every turn, thinking they could crush them with ease, but humanity had proven them wrong. They had not only survived, they had thrived. They had turned their pain and suffering into strength, and now they were showing the galaxy what true power looked like. The final battle was a culmination of everything humanity had fought for. As the human fleet descended upon the last of the alien strongholds, there was no question of who would emerge victorious. The galaxy's power structures had already crumbled, and now humanity would take its place at the top. As the final alien empire fell, the galaxy was forced to reckon with the undeniable truth. Humans were no longer the underdogs. They were the new rulers of the stars. The humans had won. They had created a new order in the galaxy, one where their children would be safe, and their species would never again be underestimated. The galaxy had been shaken to its core, and it would never be the same. In the aftermath, the surviving alien races, humbled and defeated, began to rebuild. But the lessons of humanity's rise were not lost on them. They knew that the humans had not only shown them the power of their military might, but also the strength of their spirit. And as the galaxy rebuilt, one thing was certain: humanity's legacy would last for generations to come. The galaxy had been changed forever, and no one would ever dare underestimate humanity again.